everyone. I am Ravi Kumar. Today I am going to explain in this session one of the important chapter of physical geography of the world, that is geomorphology. Guys, as you know, whenever we are studying the geography, we need to concentrate on physical geography, the human geography, and the economic geography. This we have discussed in the last class. And here, whenever we come for the physical geography, we need to study the geomorphology, climatology, and the oceanography. Please remember, it is oceanography, not oceanology. Oceanology is not there in your syllabus. We'll discuss this climatology and oceanography in the next classes. Today we'll discuss about geomorphology. Geomorphology, geo means earth, morph the formed, and logy is discourse. So earth formed has been studied in this branch of physical geography or in this chapter of physical geography, that is geomorphology. So in this, the first part comes the interior of the earth. We know that in the school level we have studied in the interior or the layers of the earth have been divided into the inner core, outer core, mantle, and the crust. And we also studied the density at the inner core is maximum and at the crust it is minimum. Then we have studied the approximate depth till the core or the radius is around 6290 kilometers. And we also studied the temperature at the core is around 6000 degrees Celsius. So all these things we have understood. Next we need to understand how we come at this numericals or at these values or at these statistics. The study of earth interior is essential to understand the earth's surface, which has been formed by the various geophysical phenomena like volcanism, earthquakes, and also to understand the internal structure of various solar system objects like moon, Mars, or whatever it is. And also we need to study the interior of the earth to understand the earth's magnetic field and to know more about the present composition of the atmosphere. Of course, to get the knowledge on mineral exploration also. That's why we need to understand the interior of the earth. And how we can understand, we have different sources like direct sources and indirect sources. Guys, if you go for the direct sources, the gold mines and also various mines. The deepest mine in the world is 3.9 kilometer, that is Poneng gold mine. The Poneng gold mine, so which has been reached 3.9 kilometer of depth. The deepest drilling is only 12 kilometer, so which has been bored, the 12 kilometer deep hole bored over the Kola Peninsula. Over the Kola Peninsula. Now you can see here the crust depth itself is 0 to 70 kilometer. From this you can understand that from the direct sources it is not at all possible to find out whichever is there we can't reach, we can't go after even the crust also. So majorly the Earth's interior has been understood by using the indirect sources such as seismic waves, meteorites, gravitation and the magnetic field. We need to understand the concepts like seismic waves and magnetic field, because these are the concepts where the UPSC asked many questions in prelims as well as in mains, and also these are the concepts where you will get confusions or doubts. So we will understand one by one what are the seismic waves and what are the characteristics of seismic waves, how the magnetic field is helping us to understand the interior of the Earth. Now if you go for the magnetic field, or sorry, if you go for the seismic waves, meteorites, gravitation, magnetic field or whatever it is, we need to understand whatever the source, whatever the heat we have in the inside of the Earth, the sources of the Earth's heat you need to understand. There are three things which are the sources of the Earth's heat, that is radioactive decay and primordial heat, then we have tidal friction. So if you go for the radioactive decay, it is, as the name itself clearly indicates, that it is attributed to the disintegration of radioactive substances. So the nuclear decay happens by the nuclear fission. In the Earth's interior, the fusion will not happen because the pressure and the temperature required for fusion is far more than whatever the pressure or temperature which is there in the inside the Earth. Next we have the primordial heat. So this is the heat which has been left over when Earth has been formed. So the rest heat apart from radioactive decay is the primordial heat which is left over from the Earth's formation. This is known as primordial heat, which is kinetic energy transferred by Earth by various external impacts of like comets, meteorites. So all these things has been caused the primordial heat. Then we have the energy which is coming from the tides goes into heat, leading to the small amount of increase in Earth's internal temperature. So you should remember this. In the next topics we will be using this knowledge, just remember this. So next we have the seismic waves. Here you should understand that seismic waves are not only from earthquake waves, they are related to earthquake waves, yes. So seismic waves are the vibrations of the earth and its crust which has been caused by various things such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, magma movement, large longitudes, large landslides and large human made explosions. So these are the different causes of seismic waves or vibrations on the earth. So majorly which is not there in our hand and which is uncontrolled and unpredictable is earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and due to magma movement. So the refraction and or the reflection of seismic waves will give us the knowledge of the interior of the earth. We will go to that after these few slides. First you should understand what is the focus and what is the epicenter. Focus is the point or the hypocenter, or the focus is the point where the earthquake or the energy releases, and that point directly above the surface or the crust surface is known as the epicenter. Then if you go for the seismic waves, we have two types, the body waves and surface waves. So body waves which are generated at the hypocenter or the focus, which will be moving in all the directions through the body of the earth, it reaches the surface, and this point is called as epicenter. and since it is traveling through the body, that's why it is called as body waves. In this we have two types, one is P waves, another is S waves. These are called as P waves or primary waves only because they are starting at first. Secondary waves, they are recorded in the seismograph after primary waves, that's why they are calling as secondary waves. And these waves are longitudinal in nature, you can see here, and these waves are transverse in nature. The S waves are transverse in nature, that you can see in the picture. And if you come to nature, the P waves will be like sound waves and S waves will be like ripples on the surface of water. So, primary waves are also called primary waves because they are fastest among all the seismic waves and hence they are recorded first in the seismograph. Seismograph is the instrument which is used to record the earthquake waves or seismic waves. Next we have surface waves. They move only along the surface after they reach the surface from the hypocenter or the focus. Once they reach the surface, they will be moving along the surface. They have long wavelength, that's why they will cause damages to the buildings which are present on the surface of the earth. And particle motion of the surface waves is larger than that of the body waves, that's what I told you, that's why they are most destructive earthquake waves. In this we have two types, one is love waves, second one is Rayleigh waves. So, both are most destructive and love waves are the most destructive among all the earthquake waves. If you look at the picture, we have these body waves, longitudinal in nature, transverse in nature, we have surface waves which are most destructive, love waves as well as Rayleigh waves. Now, after understanding the concept of S waves, P waves and love waves, Rayleigh waves, you can relate how you can use the characteristics of these waves to understand the nature of the earth or to map the interior of the earth. Here you can see this, if you take this picture, when the earthquake waves forms, the earthquake waves moving in the direction of the earth, where you can see here it is 0 degree, here it is 180 degree, 30, 60, 90 degree, and here you can take it as 103, and the same thing in the other side 0, 30, 60, 90, 103 degree. Just come for this, the S waves. The S waves, I told you, they will be moving in solid only, they will be moving in solid only, they will not move through the fluids, liquids or gases. And P waves will be moving in solids, liquids and gases, we will come to that later. Just understand this, the S waves cannot pass through the fluids, they will move only through solids. You have this crust which is solid, below the crust mantle which is solid, and outer core, they will not travel through this, they will deflect in this direction, they will stop at this point. So, whenever they are going for this, whenever they are traveling, they will stop at 103 degree. Beyond 103 degree, you can't see the S waves. That's why it is calling as S wave shadow zone. So, from this we can clearly say the outer core is liquid. Because of that, because it is a liquid, the S waves have not travelled through this. That's why the shadow zone formed. So, after 103 degree, the S wave, we can't see S waves anywhere in this part. That's why this is called as S wave shadow zone, and from this we can understand that the outer core is the liquid. Next we have the P wave shadow zone. So, as we have discussed, P waves, the velocity of the P waves in solids is higher, liquids slightly lesser, and gases it is least. whatever it is. It changes. Whenever it is moving from solids to liquids, liquids to gases, it changes. When it is deflecting, definitely from that you can understand what is the interior of the earth. Again, it is in this direction only. We have 0, 90, 103 degree and 0, 90, 103 degree. So, in this, from 103 to 142 degree approximately, P wave shadow zone lies. That means whenever they are traveling in this direction, they will deflect and move, and again they will appear at this point. So, in this point, that waves which are, since they are deflecting, if you take this wave which is coming and deflecting and which is coming here, after deflecting again it is coming here, it is liquid, because solids to liquid it has been changed. So, deflected, again it is moving in this direction, again it is deflected, and it has been reached this. So, this is the shadow zone, the P wave shadow zone between 103 to 142 degree clearly explains, the P wave shadow zone clearly explains the earth's outer core is liquid and the inner core is solid, because they are moving. If there is no solid, definitely it would have been moved in this direction and it has been stopped at this point only. It has not moved in this direction. So, this clearly shown that, so this has moved, and that speed as well as the nature of the P wave clearly shows that the interior of the earth is solid core, outer core is the liquid from this, and again we know that the mantle and the outer crust, the crust is the solid part. So, like this, based on the characteristics of P waves and S waves, we can map the earth's interior. So, this is what the clearly explains the video.
The concept of a seismic shadow zone as a global effect of an earthquake is an oversimplification that ignores a broad array of refracted, reflected, and diffracted seismic waves that propagate through the earth. For now, we'll just focus on direct compressional P and shearing S waves. These are the body waves that take the most direct routes within the earth and do create shadow zones, which are useful for teaching earth structure. An earthquake, depicted here at the top of the globe for convenience, sends compressional P waves in all directions, refracting along boundaries with depth, causing curved paths. At the core mantle boundary, they are refracted or bent inward and slow down in the liquid. It's this refraction that causes a shadow zone between the angular distances from 104 to 140 degrees from the earthquake. S waves travel along the same path as the P waves, but at slower velocity because they travel in a shearing motion perpendicular to the direction of travel. It is because of this shearing that they are stopped entirely by the liquid core. This creates an even broader shadow zone everywhere beyond 104 degrees. It was this lack of S-wave arrivals and recognition of the slowing of the P-wave velocity that caught the attention of seismologists in 1910. By understanding how energy is refracted by different materials and pressures, it enabled them to deduce a liquid outer core. By 1913, the P-wave shadow zone between 104 and 140 degrees was refined to define the core mantle boundary. Remember, these show just two of the types of seismic waves that migrate away from an earthquake.
So, this clearly explains the path traveled by P waves and S waves, which creates P wave shadow zone and S wave shadow zone, help us to map the interior of the earth. So, this is what the interior of the earth looks like. The inner core is a solid where we have Ni and Fe, knife, you know this. Then outer core is liquid. Then we have the mantle, solid, and the crust. Then this is how the Earth's layers, the lithosphere, the crust and uppermost solid mantle is called as lithosphere. Just below that we have asthenosphere, we have Mohs discontinuity here, and then Gutenberg discontinuity between mantle and outer core. And the crust is 0 to 100 kilometer and very thin in the oceanic bed, and it very thick, it is thickest at the mountains. So next we need to understand what are the elements of the earth crust and also what are the elements of earth. So if you go for the crust, only the crust part, the most abundant element is the oxygen. Next comes silicon and aluminium. In fact, iron, which is most abundant earth's matter, is only 5% when you come for the earth's crust. You should not get any confusion between this and whatever the concept we are discussing after this. The earth's crust is having maximum matter of oxygen, next comes silicon and then aluminium, and fourth one is iron. But when you come for the whole earth is having the maximum, the most abundant element of the earth is iron. Next comes oxygen. So this is what the composition of the earth. Then you should also remember the Mohorovic discontinuity, which is between the crust and the mantle, Gutenberg discontinuity, which lies between mantle and the outer core. The earth's magnetic field. So after seismic waves, you need to understand the earth's magnetic field. In this we have the concepts like the magnetic field. So the magnetic field, which is because of, so what you can see here, so the liquid of the outer core will be keep on moving because of the temperature difference. See, look at this. At the center of this, you will be having the temperature of around 6000 degrees Celsius. Here, you have the temperature which is rising from 4500 degrees Celsius to 6000 degrees Celsius. Because of the more temperature and less temperature, comparatively lesser temperature here, the liquid which is there in the outer core will be keep on moving in this direction. So this movement causes the electrical charges. This moving electrical charges makes the earth's magnetic field. So that's why the earth's magnetic field is creating in the outer core. The magnetic field of the earth is generated in the earth's outer core. So that's because of the temperature difference. And one more thing you should understand, the spiral movement of the charged particles caused by the Coriolis force due to the movement of the earth is also roughly aligned in this direction only. So that's why this also will contribute to the earth's magnetic field. Next we have geomorphic movements. These are also very important things you should understand. So which causes to the difference or the making of differences in the earth's surface. We have two types here. One is endogenic geomorphic movements, which is internally originated, which makes the earth formations, and also we have exogenic movements. So before that, you should understand what are the classification of endogenic movements. We have two things. One is diastrophic movements, which are slow, and the sudden movements which are very fast. If you understand the different types, endogenic and exogenic. Exogenic, normally it is slow, and when we are going for the endogenic movements, we have diastrophism and sudden movements. In diastrophism, we have epeirogenic or the continent forming, which is very slow process, and orogenic or mountain building. So due to the tension and compression, this forms. Then we have the sudden movements. In these sudden movements, these are the things which are causing the epeirogenic or continent forming, orogenic or mountain building. Here we have the earthquakes and volcanoes, which causes sudden movement of the earth. This both will be the major thing will be formed from endogenic, which is coming from the inner side of the earth. Next we have exogenic, which are outside element, that is weathering and erosion. Normally whatever we have, the physical, chemical, biological weathering, whatever it is, all these things, the main source is the sun. Wind, underground water, precipitation, rainwater. So all this, the origin, the source is sun here. So exogenic geomorphic movements, we have wind causes weathering, water, erosion. The force behind exogenic movements, as I told you, it's the sun. which causes precipitation, which causes evaporation, all these things. From these exogenic geomorphic movements, the denudation occurs. The word denudation is nothing but the strip off, the cover. The cover will be keep on removing from this, so that we can call it as the denudation. Denudation will be having different types and also the causes as like this. The process denudation will be having weathering, mass movements, erosion. The causes of this is shown here, that is weathering, gravitational, molecular stresses, chemical actions, the weathering causes. The mass movements will happen due to gravitational forces. Erosion and transportation will happen to the kinetic energy of the movement of water and wind. So these are all the exogenic or the exogenic geomorphic movements. So what we have discussed in this class, so we have discussed the geomorphology, the interior of the earth. The interior of the earth, what are the changes, how we can know about by using direct sources as well as indirect sources. And we have also discussed about the seismic waves, we also discussed about the magnetic field, and we have discussed about the geomorphic movements, that is endogenic as well as exogenic. So next, in the next video, we will discuss about the tectonics. We will discuss about the tectonics. We will discuss about convergent boundaries and divergent boundaries, and also the mountain, the formation of mountains, where in that we will be studying the black mountains, fold mountains. So all these things, important mountain ranges, all those things you can study in the next video. Thank you.